Grove Unleashed.
So let's talk a little bit about what is a typical budget cycle.
Right. So our fiscal year runs per the Constitution starting July 1st through June 30th. And it's very different from a calendar year or even the federal. The federal budget year actually ends in October and starts in November. Our local governments have a calendar year budget. Some school districts are an ad hoc. Some are calendar year. Most follow our fiscal year, starting July 1st through June 30th. So it starts July 1st. They rebudget. They basically do the closeout stuff from last year's budget, and then they anything they didn't spend, they move into accounts. They're not really supposed to, but the General Assembly, in their ultimate wisdom years ago, allowed them to hold on to money for decades on end. And then the next year's budget starts basically in August. The budget office sends what's called blanks to state agencies. It's, what do you want next year? Let's start planning. Those are due back by December timeframe. December, we have the mid-year budget update, where Budget Secretary comes in, meets with the General Assembly, the governor, and says, here's where we're at mid-year. Governor gives his budget address, his vision for what he wants to see next year in the finances of the Commonwealth. February timeframe. The House and Senate will do budget hearings with their Appropriations Committee for about 3 weeks, and that can start anywhere from end of February through March. And all this time, state agencies are spending money. We're doing oversight on it, the whole 9 yards. We get a spring update where state agencies are looking at utilization of services heading into the new year. There's, at some point, discussions, negotiation. The deadline happens, and sometimes we have a budget in place before the deadline. Sometimes it's after the deadline. But that's our basic general process. But budgeting is a year-round process. When state agencies are spending money, we should be watching what they're spending, why they're spending it, the whole 9 yards. We should have active auditing provisions. We should have internal auditors, auditor general looking at what they're doing, what they're spending. And one important part of the budget process is actually the annual financial report. That is your closeout, end of the year. It usually gets released, usually in October timeframe. And that gives you a snapshot of where the previous year ended and gives you a good update on where the finances are. It's good governance. Nobody looks at it. It's a real shame because it's chock full of information.
All right, Seth, we are 4 weeks out from the budget. Where should we be right now, and where are we right now?
So we're looking for the month of June, right? There's usually 4 weeks in June, and that's usually when people start talking budget. Hopefully, by the beginning of June, there's some preliminary budget discussions that have happened between leaders and the governor's office. So with 4 weeks left in the budget fiscal year, you should be looking at more in-depth discussions, looking at how much do we really want to spend. And that's the big crux. That's what they come back with. That's what their focus is. How much do we want to spend? I've always had a problem with that because no one says how much revenues are actually available to spend versus how much are we going to spend. There are two very different questions, very, very different questions. So they usually look at it as how much do we want to spend this year, right? Big number. And then they kind of drill down from there on, well, I want X amount for education and it's horse trade. I want money here, I want money there, and you look at priorities.
This is a direct quote from the governor's office. You can expect to see the governor continuing to be on the road in June, meeting Pennsylvanians where they are, meeting them in their communities, and talking about how we need to get stuff done on the issues that matter most, said Shapiro's press secretary, Emmanuel Bonder. Is that how we get a budget done, by having the governor traveling the state?
No, the governor needs to be here in Harrisburg meeting with leaders to finalize a budget. Now, a lot of the work is done at staff level back and forth, but those conversations need to happen between the governor, Senate leadership, House leadership to get things done. So the fact that the governor is going to spend time everywhere but Harrisburg is not a good sign of an on-time budget.
And just to quote the AP a little bit more here, in recent weeks, Shapiro went jet skiing on Lake Wallenpaupack in northeastern Pennsylvania and threw out the first pitch at a minor league baseball game in Lancaster as part of a week-long tour to highlight his tourism rebranding of Pennsylvania as, quote, Great American Getaway.
By the way, I do like the new logo.
Yeah, I think the new logo is fine.
I think it's great. It actually makes sense to me. We've had these logos in the past that just suck. This is probably one of the best ones I had. So I do appreciate. We should promote it.
But this isn't the Great American Getaway. This is Josh Shapiro getting away from Harrisburg to avoid his budget responsibilities.
Correct. I mean, the governor has a responsibility to be part of the budget process. I was worried beginning of this year because during his budget address, the linchpin of this entire budget is actually education funding. He wants $1 billion more. He's supposedly supported school choice. I don't know how real that is. But basically with the school choice issue, he looked at the House and Senate and said, you guys go figure that out. I'm not getting involved in that major decision.
That's not leadership.
No, that's not leadership at all.
Grove Unleashed.